let's talk about the other team within the state of Tennessee, the Tennessee Volunteers, number 15 in the country, undefeated. Sorry, not undefeated. They are 3-1. The one loss coming at home in overtime to Georgia. They had a field goal attempt to win the game in regulation. That attempt misses, and they take the loss in overtime in a crazy fun game a couple weeks ago. Tennessee to this point probably look a little bit better than a lot of us were expecting. I know the Vols still had fairly high expectations, but offensively, so much new for this team compared to where they were last year that there was just a lot of questions. For as much issue as Nico Iamaleava gave them, was Joey Aguilar truly going to be better? Were they going to have receivers step up? How is the offensive line going to play? How are they going to replace, at running back, Dylan Sampson, and losing a player of his caliber? And talking about the Tennessee offense here to start, they look as good as they have looked ever to this point under Josh Heupel. And dare I say, this might be the best version of the Tennessee offense we've seen. And I am basing that off the fact that they were able to put 41 points on the board against Georgia. And I will always use Georgia as the measuring stick for Tennessee. In 2022, that awesome Tennessee team, they scored 13 in Athens and were not able to do anything against Georgia for that, that great Tennessee team offensively with Hendon Hooker, Jalen Hyatt, Cedric Tillman, all those guys. This Tennessee team was able to score on Georgia, which I know it's not as good of a Georgia team as that 22 team was, but still, that counts for something. And the fact that it's not just lighting up weak opponents in the non-con like it was a season ago, this offense is cooking. And a lot of it is quarterback play. Joey Aguilar has been fantastic to this point. On the season, he is completing about 67% of his passes for 281 yards a game, 9.6 yards per attempt, 12 touchdowns to just 3 picks. He also has a rushing touchdown. He's not been a huge runner for them to this point, but he can use his legs. He has been very impressive. The transfer from UCLA by way of App State just has really stood out, and he's executing this offense at a high level, gets the ball out quick, does a great job, hitting his receivers downfield and at least giving his guys a chance to catch the football downfield, which was an issue for Nico. He looks more decisive. He's been better with the deep ball, and they're operating the system at a higher level. I will also say he's being helped out in a lot of ways around him, both from a personnel standpoint, but also from what Josh Heupel's doing. From a personnel standpoint, receivers have stepped up. They are better at receiver this year than they were a season ago. Chris Brazzell, last year was kind of a mediocre year for him. He finished the season last year with 29 catches for 333 yards and 2 touchdowns. This year, he already has 25 catches for 426 yards and touchdowns. So he's already greatly surpassed his numbers from a year ago. And I know it's easy to say, well, it's the quarterback, and quarterback is part of it for sure. But Brazzell never really stood out last year. He's a big-time playmaker for them this year. Brandon Staley and Mike Matthews, the 2 young guys, both of them getting involved and putting up big numbers. Miles Kitselman has been very impressive for them at tight end. They've got weapons in the receiving core, and I understand, Kitselman was a starter for them a season ago, but they're getting him involved more. And I understand some of this is quarterback, but also I just think guys have gotten better, and it's also how they're being utilized. If you watch Tennessee this year, they don't just go wide splits every single play. They don't just throw deep shots every single play. You see more formations. You see more crossing routes. You see more just a different variety of passing concepts. You see receivers running real routes, which is the thing Tennessee has not always done. It is a different Tennessee Volunteer offense this year under Josh Heupel. They have really reinvented themselves to become a much more multiple type of offensive attack, and that makes them more difficult to defend. I think that's a big reason why they were able to put points on the board in the way they were against Georgia, is Georgia had gotten so used to looking at Tennessee and was like, you guys run 5 plays, and we'll just cover your 5 plays and we'll be good. They don't do that anymore, and it makes them more difficult to deal with. The run game has not missed a beat without Dylan Sampson. Star Thomas, the Duke transfer, 272 yards at about 6.5 a carry with 4 touchdowns. Deshaun Bishop, 3 touchdowns on 6.9 yards per carry, 263 yards. Peyton Lewis, 3 scores, has been good for them to this point, 157 yards and 4.9 a carry. So it's sort of a three-headed monster at running back that has been very effective. Guys who have made plays, watching them, if there was a thing I look at with Tennessee that's a little bit of a concern, their O line has not from them. Their O line has not been overly impressive. They're not giving up sacks because Aguilar does a great job getting the ball out. Like it's very quick. He's very decisive. The ball's out. But they do get pushed around a little bit. The run blocking is not always there. Those running backs, those are guys who can make plays, though. Those are guys who can sort of make things happen even when everything's not there. This is a dangerous Tennessee offense. And as much as we talked about Arizona State being a big test for the Bulldog defense, this is an even bigger test for Mississippi State defensively this weekend.
No doubt, man, and credit to the Vols. You know what's interesting? You mentioned some of their running backs. I feel like the run game, uh, outside of maybe Braylon Staley with 281 receiving and Chris Brazel with 426. And I know this is a team that has been heavy on quarterback and getting the ball out, taking the deep shots, but they've really leaned a lot on the run game this year. Star Thomas, watch him, you know, 42 carries, 272 averages, 6.5, longest play of 27, already 4 rushing touchdowns. But what's scary to me, um, if you're Mississippi State, you have to prepare for two, if not maybe three different running backs. Because I feel like Tennessee just loves to rotate those bodies. Deshaun Bishop, 38 carries, 263 on the ground, averaging about 6.9, counted seven uh, on a carry. And as long as play is 50, he's already got 3 rushing touchdowns. Peyton Lewis, not as much for him, but he has 3 rushing touchdowns. Basically, the run game is going to be difficult to stop for Mississippi State's defense, although I like what I've seen so far from that side of the defense for the Bulldogs. But this is not a pushover run game that Tennessee is going to put on the field Saturday.
No, and I will for me that's a little bit of a concern because Arizona State in the second half, man, they were able to really lean on their run game against Mississippi State. And
Yeah.
Northern Illinois over the weekend was able to have some success running the football. The state's going to have to contend with that, and that'll be difficult to deal with a little bit. Well, I'll tell you what scares me most though is a passing attack with multiple dynamic playmakers on the field. Um, you know, Arizona State was very much Jordan Tyson is the guy, and he is awesome, but he's one guy. And Southern Miss, I think they have some okay receivers, but it's still it's Southern Miss. NIU, they had one guy who made some plays, but overall their playmakers don't really jump off the page. Tennessee's got 3 guys plus a tight end, so it's really 4 who are like legit
Yeah.
threats in the receiving core. And man, that is tough to contend with. And look, State's corners have performed really well to this point. Kelly Jones is one of the highest graded corners in the country. Same goes for Diego Brumfield. You have Jet Jefferson back. He was able to play last week. Javen Williams has also graded out well. So State's corners have been a whole lot better than State fans were expecting them to be coming into the year. They are going to have to be at their best in this game. But State safeties as well, because it's not just about defending the guys on the outside. It's defending the slot receivers as well, and that's where State's safeties come into this. And, Isaac Smith is going to have to be on his game. They're going to need Brian Lanier on his game, Hunter Washington. We're still waiting to see what's going to happen with Jerron Manning because he got hurt against NIU, and Jeff Lebby did not provide an update today. Basically, the way Levy sort of handles things when it comes to injuries is non-conference. He'll kind of give you an idea of what a guy's dealing with. Once conference play hits, you can wait till the injury report comes out before you find out the deal because Jeff Levy's not going to tell you. So we'll know Wednesday night when the first injury report gets released kind of what it's looking like for Jerron Manning, but that'd be significant. Like they need him to be able to go. He's supposed to be one of their better guys there on the back end at safety. So it's going to be tough for them to deal with those receivers. That's going to be the big thing. How is State able to handle an offense that is so multi-dimensional and has so many real threats to deal with? This is going to be a big test for the Bulldog defense.
No doubt, man. I mean, you mentioned some of the guys on defense. It's going to be a challenge, but at least we have the really good numbers going into this game. I mean, I thought I had it pulled up here. Let me look. But I thought I just saw, did we not have like 4 guys with an interception already? I mean, something like that. No, we got 5. We got Brian Lanier at safety, Javen Williams, Hunter Washington, and Diego Brumfield. It all comes in the secondary. Isaac Smith also there, but it, these are, and Javen Williams has hit pretty hard for some fumbles. There's a lot of physicality and toughness on the back end of the defense in the secondary. I want to see it for the guys up front. We've seen it so far this season too, but I feel like there's been a lot of emphasis on stopping the pass, which I think is needed for this Mississippi State defense.
They have definitely played more defend the pass first, but look, I'll say second half against Arizona State, they were trying to stop the run, and ASU was having success. Northern Illinois, I think they were trying to stop the run, and IU was not having a ton of success, but was able to hit a few nice runs and move the chain and have put together a few good drives. They're going to need the defensive front and the safeties. Those are the groups I'm looking at in this game. Need to have big performances. You got to create some disruption, because I will say this, and I kind of talked about it. Tennessee offensive line is still kind of a spot I look at. On the year, 2 sacks allowed. I think it's only 11 tackles for loss allowed. Those are really good numbers to this point. But if you watch it, it's Joey Aguilar gets the ball out quick. Like he does not sit back in the pocket, wait around the way Nico did. That ball's out.
Yeah.
2, the 3 running backs, those guys have made some plays when they haven't always been there. They do a good job of getting downhill. They do a good job of finding space. So I think there's opportunities to be had if your defensive line can create some disruption to kind of get in the backfield and mess things up a little bit. But they do a good job of handling that. So State's definitely going to have to step up to be able to limit the run game as much as possible. But yeah, on the back end, you've got to cover as well. Looking at Tennessee defensively, not as dominant to this point as I think a lot of people were expecting. There were really high expectations for this Tennessee defense this year. After such a great group a season ago, where last year only gave up 16 points a game, were really dominant on that side of the ball. They lost a lot of guys from that group, but they still brought back quite a bit of experience. Now, I know they've been playing without their starting corners throughout the season, and it has shown a little bit. They're giving up close to 28 points a game. Syracuse scored 26 on them. Georgia scored 44. Now, and UAB last week put up 24. Now, most of those points from UAB were second half. But last year, Tennessee didn't have games like that. Against these greatly outmatched opponents, it didn't matter that they were up big. They still shut down those teams when they played them. So it is a little bit of a sign of a defense that's not as deep, not as talented. And I talk about the pass defense especially. Right now, they are giving up 279 passing yards a game. They are allowing teams to complete 67% of their passes for over 7 yards attempt. They've given up 6 touchdowns and have only picked off 3 passes. They've not been good against the pass. And looking at it from like a game-by-game perspective, and I know there's only a couple games that matter here, but Syracuse, 274 yards through the air. Not a super efficient day, but still we're able to find some success. 304 yards for Georgia. UAB, a lot of it was second half, but UAB was throwing the ball some in the first half too. They finished with 371 yards. And I know you look at yards per attempt, but 7.1 for UAB, 9.5 for Georgia, 6.9 for Syracuse is not very good. It was mostly, underneath stuff. Tennessee's a team you can throw it against a little bit. And I think if you're Mississippi State, with what you've seen to this point from your passing game, you try to see if you can take advantage of that. Against the run, they've been really good. 93 rushing yards allowed per game. But it is, I will say, like Syracuse, 103 yards rushing, but it was only 2.3 a carry. They really limited the Syracuse run game a lot. Shut down East Tennessee, shut down UAB. Georgia ran for 198 yards and 3 touchdowns. Now, 3.6 a carry. Georgia was not gashing them on the ground. They were able to limit it a little bit. But you can run on them a little bit. Like Georgia was able to run some too. This is a gettable Tennessee defense. Now, I don't want to sit here and tell you that this defense doesn't still have guys that you have to worry about. Their defensive front can create a lot of problems. Joshua Joseph's off the edge, 3 sacks for him on the season, 4 tackles for loss. Jalen McMurray, well, that's a DB, but I'm sorry, I don't know all their players, but 1.5 sacks for Nathan Robinson and Caleb Herring. From a tackle for loss standpoint, 3.5 for Caleb Herring. Boo Carter, the nickel to back, has gotten involved with 3.5 tackles for loss, as well as Jalen McMurray with 3. Arion Carter's a really good linebacker. He has 2 in the season. 3 different players in the interception to this point. I'm curious how many guys you have that have had passes broken up. Colton Hood, I forget. Yeah, that guy's been really good for them. Colton has had to step in as a starter at corner, and he has done his job to this point, playing really well, holding down his side of the field. But they're not as dominant as we thought they would be coming in. They got guys who are playmakers that can make some big plays, that can create negative plays. I think to this point of the season, they have 30 tackles for loss already through 4 games. And as a team, they have 15 sacks. So they're averaging close to 4 sacks a game. They create negative plays, but they also give up yards. They've given up some points. Mm-hmm. And I look at Georgia. Georgia was able to get some plays both down the field, but also sideline to sideline. The perimeter, like Georgia threw a bunch of little quick screens that turned into like 10, 15-yard gains, and Tennessee just couldn't stop it. Georgia did some stuff getting around the edge in the run game, picking up good gains. I look at, a guy like Anthony Evans from Mississippi State, and I feel like he could kind of have a game like Zach Branch had a couple weeks ago for Georgia. Like, he's not that level of player, but he's a similar type guy. I think State's going to have a way to move the ball some on Tennessee. Like, State's offensive line has got to step up because Tennessee's defensive front can give them some problems. But I think State can find a way to put some points on the board in this game.
I think so too. But like you said, man, the O-line has to step up, and I think that's our key. If you give Shapen time to throw, he can make the throws. I'm not really buying so much of Tennessee's secondary as much as their defensive front. It is interesting to see that they can get after the quarterback. I counted 6 guys that have at least 1 sack. There's some tag teaming going on with guys like Jordan Ross or Marion Dye with half a sack so far this year. The leader in sacks is Joshua Joseph at 3. They have bodies. The problem for Tennessee, though, is they don't have a set starting lineup. Not that they don't have a starting lineup, but there's not a set like, hey, we got these 2 guys that tag team and they go back and forth. It's Joshua Josephs who leads in sacks at 3, and then everyone else is like hitting 1.5 sacks. So, I mean, do you think that creates an advantage possibly for the quarterback play in Blake Shapen this week?
You mean just the number of guys that they have that can create problems?
Well, like, they have multiple guys that can create problems, but it's, I feel like Tennessee's that team that just rotates all the bodies. And so they just kind of
They do
does
some,
that.
they did it more last year. Because like last year,
Right.
they legit had like a 2 deep that they could just roll out there. I don't know that they have that depth this year. But like, it's also some of like who they've played to this point. They've had 3 games where they've been able to play a lot of guys, kind of similar to Mississippi State. Like State rotates bodies a lot to this point because outside of Arizona State, they've been able to. And I think the same could probably be said for Tennessee. I think it's mostly going to be their top guys, but it's a defense. I think you have a chance if you can avoid giving up the disastrous plays. And look, Tennessee hasn't forced just a ton of turnovers to this point. I'm curious what their havoc rate would be. This point of the season of negative plays created so far. That could be something we look at as we get later into the week more for this matchup. But I think if you can avoid the big time negative plays, like you have a chance to move the ball on Tennessee. You got to be careful with the football, but I think you have a chance to have some success here. So it's not the defense we thought we were going to see. Now, if we come into this game and Giovanni McCoy at corner is going to be back when he's one of the top players in the country, he hasn't played this season. That would be tough to deal with. But even if he does come back, hey, it would be game 1. And I don't know what his status is going to be coming into this. I don't know if Heupel has given any kind of an update. I'm sure we'll get it should be on the injury report to find out for sure what that's going to look like in a couple of days. But, it's so funny. Coming into the year, I talked about this game, and I thought if State was going to have a chance. Because I was not buying into the Tennessee offense, but I thought their defense would be really, really good. I thought State would kind of have to win a slugfest at home. You're going to have to score some points against Tennessee, but you might have to kind of win a rock fight. I think you're probably looking at having to win a shootout now, which frankly is more in when you say Jeff Lebby versus Josh Heupel, you envision shootout. So I think this could be a fun game in Starkville with a lot of points on the board.